welcome back to another MaizePlus video and another one in our Getting Started With series. And this time we're looking at sheep. Sheep are a bit more complicated with MaizePlus than the base game because, as with a lot of the other animals, they go to the 4 bars of feed. So we've got protein, silage, roughage, moisture food and power food going down in 40, 30, 20 and 10%. So you can't just feed them grass or hay and be done, subject to a couple of things I'm going to talk about in a moment. So what feed do sheep need? The first thing I'm going to talk about is grazing. I have grazing on here. If you're on Calmston and you want grazing, if you go onto Oxy's Discord and search for grazing, you'll find a post by Oxy where he has the files to add into the map to enable grazing. Those were created by me. So yeah, go do that if you want that. It's pretty simple. I think he put some instructions there as well. So that gives you grazing. Grazing fills all 4 food groups, and that's what's filled these up. So you can just leave when grass is growing. As long as you haven't got too many sheep, grazing will take care of it. The reason I mention that is because if we go into sheep, you'll see that each group has grass conditioned in it as a feed type, and most of them have grass fresh. Grass conditioned is in there to make grazing work. It's not intended that you would store conditioned grass to feed your sheep. You can if you choose to. You can bale conditioned grass if you choose to. In reality, it would rot, so it's not something that's encouraged with MaizePlus. It's there to make grazing work. And then grass fresh is there for zero grazing or indirect grazing. So grass fresh will fill the protein silage, the moisture food and the power food, and then you have to put hay in as well. And the way that you could do that, and I do it on my Maypole Farm series with my cows, is get yourself a tractor with a mower and a loading wagon on the back, and you want it to be set to, let me put the HUD back on, do not have the conditioner on, so we can put the loading wagon on, put the mower on, drop the mower down. We will collect a bunch of fresh or wet grass. That's what the icon with the 3 little drops is. And that can do 3 of your 4 food groups, and with hay, that's another easy way to get going. And yeah, if you wanted to get started with sheep, it's probably the way I would do it, because you can we'll go into the detail of the different foods in a moment, but you can get started with just some grass. Then you could mow some of it and make hay, and then you could keep the rest growing and cut it as you feed it, or you could choose, if you were so inclined, to cut it and store it. That's not how it's intended to work. The intention is that you would feed this directly, or it would come through grazing with the conditioned grass. So I'm going to get this filled up and I'll be back. So I've got most of a load here. I forgot to mention it in the cows video. If you were getting started with cows, I would do this approach as well. Because you can get started again with just grass. You could, I did mention that you could do grass, silage and hay, and you could make yourself a TMR. But so you can see we can put fresh grass in if we check the bars at the moment, and then start unloading. We'll see that 1, 3 and 4 are starting to fill up, and the roughage one is staying still. That's because the intent is that you'd then get yourself a bale of hay and put that in, and that would be a complete feed for your sheep. So, excuse me, the same thing works as well for cows. So that's a couple of ways that you can look after feeding your sheep. Let's go into their actual feed then. So as I said, grass conditioner and fresh grass are there for a couple of particular mechanics. They're not intended as things that you would keep and feed, but you can. So actually for the protein silage, you're looking at clover or alfalfa silage. You can buy those through the store with MaizePlus. Some maps have them enabled. It really depends on if the map has enabled them properly as to whether they'll work with MaizePlus. The farming agency are not doing anything with maps for MaizePlus. They're working on TerraLife at the moment, which will be a much more complete overhaul of all the feeding and crops and all kinds of things, and that will be built into a limited selection of maps. The other option, if you want to spread yourself, is whole crop silage. I would recommend, if you're going to make whole crop silage, to green mow oats, wheat or barley, and I've got a video on which is the best to do. But green mowing gives you a much better yield, and you can do it at an earlier state. So If you want to make whole crop silage, you can go that way, and then you don't even need a forage harvester. You could just mow it, bale it and wrap it like normal silage. That works really well. Roughage is hay, so you've got either hay, alfalfa hay or clover hay. Again, you can make hay, you can buy the other two, or hay pellets, and you can either buy those or you could use the pellet press, the pellet production mod on ModHub by me, and that will let you make hay pellets as well, from hay, obviously. Moisture food, so that's kind of your root crops mostly. So carrots you can buy from the store, or you've got cut sugar beet or sugar beet cut. Beet pulp you can buy from a placeable buy point that's built into MaizePlus. I'll just show you that. So that is this guy, and the same for brewer's grain, and they are just £1 or $1, so pretty cheap to put down. Bring that back up, and you can make those, you can make beet pulp into silage as well, but actually brewer's grain is not on there, so you can ignore that one. And then fresh maize is maize that's been harvested with a forage harvester and not fermented. Pretty self-explanatory, hopefully. And then cut potatoes, obviously potatoes that have been through the Ruby shredding bucket, or another way of producing cut potatoes. And then lastly, power food. So that's either grain grist, either the Doika or the non-Doika one. You make that with the starter mill, or you can buy it. Mineral feed, either the base game or the MaizePlus one, or beet pellets, and you can again make those through the pellet production mod that I have produced, which is on ModHub, or you can buy them from the store. And that's pretty much it for getting started with sheep. A pretty easy one to get going with, really, and you could just start with them in particular if you start at the map normal time in August and you've got a map that's got grazing, or you put grazing in. Got loads of videos on that on the channel, and hopefully more mappers will start incorporating grazing. Then you can just get started with chucking the sheep in a field, and they'll graze while you work on sorting out how you're going to do the rest. So buying the bales are really cheap with MaizePlus, economical, not cheap. So a base game hay bale is, you get 8,000 litres of hay for $1,400, which is pretty good, really. That is good value. And then if we go into the sort of the alfalfa hay, in £200 or euros for 4,500 litres. So it's not going to cost you a lot if you buy it. In fact, you could probably make grass hay and sell that and use the money to buy clover hay or whatever you needed, and probably make a decent profit on that, or get more back. Yeah, that's a sheep. So a couple more to go, but if you enjoyed this, click the like button, comments, questions or suggestions below. If you're new to the channel and you aren't already, subscribe, turn on notifications. Quick thank you to the patrons and the YouTube channel members, and I'll try and remember to put links to the pellet production mod that I mentioned in the description below as well. And there is a very funky looking bird flying across the sky there. Interesting. It's doing so fast it's creating a trail. Yeah, I'll try and remember to put that in. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.